Hello, everybody. You're listening to the GHIBLICAST. It's been a little while. We are joined by regular co-host Hippo Crit.
Hello, everybody.
And now we got Munchie as a guest once again.
I'm back. I was completely disgraced by my first appearance, and everyone hated me, even though I just kept saying that I loved the movie and that I agreed with all of you, but everyone was like, no, you don't agree with us hard enough. And so here I am to redeem myself by unironically liking the movie.
Yeah, the Devu could not be here. He's too busy working on my Steins Gate Zero Sucks videos, which I'm only mentioning by name because we're on the main channel and people give a fuck. So this time we're talking about Porco Rosso, which is sort of like the dark horse of Hayao Miyazaki's catalog. I don't know if it's his outright least known movie, but it's definitely the one that seems to get talked about the least. But as a response to that, it's also the one that is like the hipster favorite.
This is definitely like the darkest horse humanly possible. This is my favorite Ghibli movie.
Yeah, I have to definitely say, if hipsters like this, then like call me a hipster, capital H. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, animated or otherwise. This is a great movie that hits completely hits my strike zone in aesthetic, in like character, in pacing, and everything. This is Gehunkunstwerk-Kino. It's a compound word of both of those.
So just to check, all three of us just watched this for the first time, right?
Yeah. Wait,
no.
You've never seen this before?
I had never seen this until like a week ago.
I thought you reviewed anime. I thought you were an anime reviewer.
I mean, yeah, you would think I would have seen an anime, but I've never seen a single one.
We're on the road. We're on the road to honor.
I have seen this before. I saw it years ago on TV in the dubbed form. And I remember really liking it. It was really, really beautiful on the big screen, also known as the TV.
This is actually breaking my streak where the only Ghibli movies I've ever seen have been like re-releases. There's like an entire like Studio Ghibli festival going on right now where every month there's a new Ghibli movie in theaters. Like you can go to your local movie theater and see them on screen. And I've seen basically all of the Ghibli movies I've ever seen like that. So this is the first one that I'm seeing on the little tiny little monitor screen.
Yeah, just because of the sheer coincidence that I thought you wanted to be on this one because you said you wanted to be on Porco.
Yeah.
Which is the other Dark Horse Ghibli movie.
Porco is great. This is better than Porco, but I love Porco.
All right, well, let's dive right into this thing then. First of all, the first thing that struck me about this movie right away, phenomenal color palette.
Yes! Oh my god, I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay, the open blue of, like, the sky and the sea, like, contrasted with Porco is just so bright red plain. Makes me so happy. And I like the fact that it's, like, you know, if you're like an amateur and you're drawing something, you want to make something bright, you're just going to increase the saturation. But really, it's not so much the fact that it is a saturated red, but just that it contrasts so nicely with the blue. None of them are, like, no colors here are eye bleeding or anything. None of them are too oversaturated or like, you know, like endless war stuff. It's all super pleasant to the eye. It's just bright. It's bright and colorful.
It's a sunny day color palette. Yeah. It really works.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's an important character detail, too, because it's sort of implied that his plane is red to be an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that I don't remember, there's a part where, like, someone says, like, that goddamn red plane.
Yeah.
You know, like, that fucker
coming
with
on the annoying red plane, yeah.
Because you know, it's the least stealthy color. Like, it's the easiest to hit, the easiest to spot. So for him to have a red plane, it's like unmistakably you know that this guy, first of all, you know when he's coming at you, and second of all, you know that if you get shot down by him, he had a disadvantage no matter what, because he's flying a fucking bright red plane. So and I think that's exactly why it's red. Like, that it totally fits into his character, not only in that he's a show-off who wants to be a badass, but also in that he doesn't want to kill anybody, so he wants you to have that fair warning that he's coming.
Porco Rosso, just like the character, just makes me swoon. Like there's a ton of fangirls. He has a lot of clout in universe. Yeah. He has a lot of clout outside of the universe. Because whenever I see him, I'm just like, oh my god, Porco Rosso, you're so cool. There's this one scene when Porco Rosso and I don't even remember his name, Kenneth from 30 Rock, are sitting at a movie together watching a Disney movie, and the guy, he's part of like the fascist Italian government, right? And he's just like, you know, like I can help you, Porco Rosso. You're like an outlaw. I can help you, you know, cross the borders. something. And Porco Rosso unironically says, "I'd rather be dead than be a fascist." And that's like a meme, like, you know, like haha thing to say. But it unironically worked on me. I'm like, wow, you're so cool, dude. You're really cool, Porco Rosso. Unironically, I'd rather be dead than be a fascist too. You're so iron-willed.
Porco Rosso is very much Fedora core, and I do think the movie makes fun of him for it. Like part of
I
the
don't think
point,
they should. He's sick.
part of the fun of the movie is that like it kind of pokes fun of him for being sort of a man-child in a way.
I mean, yeah,
who gets into a goofy fisticuffs fight and gets his ass kicked over fighting over a girl, you know?
Yeah, the whole thing of him being like cursed into a pig is sort of supposed to be like a metaphor. I'm not really sure what the metaphor exactly is because I'm not smart, but like it's clear
Porco
that like
Rosso is just such a
his
cool guy.
lifestyle.
He's such a nice guy in every way. He doesn't do anything wrong. Like,
Yeah.
like what has he done wrong in his entire life? Like,
I don't think he's done anything wrong. I think the pig curse has nothing to do with him doing something wrong and everything to do with his mindset. And it's that here's my theory, and this is kind of my big opening up what I think is like the main theme. Well, not even the main theme of the movie because there's a lot going on in this movie, but like with what is up with him is that he basically went the path of nihilism. That like he was somebody who cared a lot when he was younger about other people and about being like a moralist and stuff. And I mean, he still is a moralist today, but like he doesn't want to. He basically just wants to be a loner and do his own thing and just do it for fun and do whatever the hell he wants and not fight for any particular purpose because, you know, when you care about things, they get taken away from you, as he's learned. You know?
and also, like, it's less, like, he's sort of taken that angle of, like, well, I don't really care about myself. Like, I care about others, you know, but I don't care. I don't matter. Whatever. I'm just gonna, you know, if I die, I die. And then the love interest is like, you're such a stupid idiot, getting yourself into danger all the time.
Right. For no reason, you know.
What I liked about that whole dynamic with, I forget her name, Mai-chan, Rarity, Rarity, I was thinking of the little baby girl, like the 2-year-old. What I liked about that is that she totally had a crush on Porco Rosso, but like he just didn't give a shit like at all, and he just was constantly like pushing her away at every opportunity and being like, "Dude, you're 3."
I mean, I think it's sort of implied that he would be interested if he wasn't who. I mean, yeah, he's definitely a lot older than her, and that's part of why he's not, you know, not interested in pursuing her. But I think he does see her as a good woman who would be deserving. But it's like, I've got, you know, I want an old battle scarred fucking, you know, I want the crown jewel of the seas, the woman who's fucking been with 3 different soldiers who have all died.
Bad luck, bad roll.
I don't think it's a bad role. I think her thing is just that she's into that moralist like idea. Like she's into
and all
guys
moralists
who
die.
Right, exactly. All the good die young, as he says a whole bunch of times throughout the movie. Like, you know, she is in love with guys who are just like foolhardy, good-hearted people who like just want to do the right thing. And even the dumbass American Hollywood guy, she says at one point, like, "You're dumb. I like that in a man." You know, like even though he is you know, he's more of a literal, well, a figurative pig, whereas you know, Porco Rosso is a literal one. Like he still has kind of a good heart. You know, he's still in it for. He's still trying to be like chivalrous. He's just a, you know, complete douchebag's idea of chivalry, I guess. But she's still into it.
To quote the narrator for Hunchback of Notre Dame, "What makes a monster and what makes a man?" And then he holds on the note for man for a really long time. By the way, speaking of Rarity, when she sings, when she's first introduced and she's singing, the lip syncing on that is like they just hold open her mouth when she's singing and then don't even close it when she stops singing. Like, it's the worst lip sync I've ever seen in my entire life.
I do remember it felt weird.
It was like they didn't know how to lip sync French, so they just didn't. So they just didn't lip sync any language or any sounds whatsoever. They just like went like vaguely when the sounds were coming out. Like the mouth was open, and when they weren't, it was closed, and there was no like teeth or animation, just
Yeah.
like mouth open or not.
I mean,
It was like she was-
Japanese animation has always like had its strengths in things looking real, and mouths is just sort of like the thing that nobody knows how to do and nobody cares. Because
It's a
Japanese
shame.
has too many syllables, you can't really animate lip syncs to that.
Because Japanese people can't speak, so you can't look at their mouths and know how they're moving their mouths.
All right, well, I wanted to talk a little bit about like how the dub and sub were different.
Yeah. I only watched this sub, so I have no
I watched the
comprehension.
dub back
neither.
in the day as a little boy, and I remember it being really good and cool. Obviously, I hadn't seen the alternative. I just remembered the movie was great. Rewatching it, I instinctively started with the dub because that's what I like to do that with the Ghibli cast, just because a lot of the time I would be the only one who does the dub, and it would be like and generally Ghibli dubs
contrast.
are good.
Interesting.
But this time something felt off and it wasn't very good, and I switched to the sub and I rewatched the beginning of the movie, and I noticed that they had taken quite a lot of liberties with like what was said, and not just the way it was said. Like the pirates at the beginning who are like stealing the children off the thing, they are not like portrayed as goofy in the English dub. They are just like gruffly saying, "Shut up, go. We gotta get out of here," like the sort of boring, like non-characters you would hear in any other like TV show or whatever. And like it was really not jarring, but like interesting to note that all the goofiness, all the idea of like these kidnappers being actually kind of nice, and that was the joke. Like it was completely ripped away, probably because they didn't want like kidnappers to be seen as good in any way, but it ruined like quite a lot of the humor at the beginning.
Right, and I mean, and the point of those characters when they come back later and you realize that like they're not, no one in this movie is like a bad guy. They're all just like really foolhardy. It's like an adventure serial where all the characters grew up reading adventure serials or something. You know,
it's a pirate show where everybody has a code of honor, and they just have planes instead of boats, and they're all gruff and stupid.
I guess I would
So
say
great.
this is almost tonally similar to Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie series. Like that idea of like, yeah, they're all pirates, but everyone's kind of got a heart of gold or a code of ethics or something.
Like even if
you
they
know?
do like literally bad things and nasty and sneaky things, they have like their heart in
They've
the right
got their
place.
reasons.
Like even if they kill people, they're like, yeah, people die anyway. People die in real life, so like it's not even that bad.
That's a funny way of putting it. Yeah, I noticed with the subtitles that I was watching that I wasn't sure if the subtitles were just the dialogue of the dub, but there was a lot of like discrepancy between what the subtitles I was reading were saying and how I would have interpreted the phrases that I was hearing. Obviously, I'm not completely fluent in Japanese or anything, but I know enough of it to. None of it was like inaccurate. It was all just like, well, if you phrased it like this, it would capture the tone of the movie a little better. So I don't know if there is better
example?
subs than the ones I watched, but
Do you have an example of that happening?
Oh, I can't think of any. I should have taken notes. This was my first time watching the movie, so I kind of didn't want to I realized like 5 minutes in I should have a notepad, but then I was like, I don't want to be looking away the whole time. This might be the only Ghibli movie that we've done on this show so far where I feel like I have my theories about it, but I feel a little underprepared because all the other movies, it was like I had realized so much more watching them a second or third time that with this one, I don't want to try to say this is like my definitive take when I've only seen it the once,
I have no qualms about such things, and I confidently can say it's like a 9 or more. Like a 9.2 or something. One thing that like I really noticed when watching this movie, that it's evident throughout, I think like basically all Ghibli movies and basically all like old cartoons, and not old as in like 1940s, but as in like like something you're not going to see on TV nowadays. And that's that the characters express at all because they aren't like a super flat design. See, in modern shows, like even stuff that like I like Steven Universe, that animation is inherently limited because the modelers and the animators aren't thinking about them in terms of 3D space like how they are now. Like in Porco Rosso, you really feel like this person has dimension, this person has weight. You can reach out and touch him, and because of that, you can animate way more fluidly, and you can animate way more wildly, and it looks more believable and isn't hard on the character designers. But when you get stuff like, I don't know, like World of Gumball or whatever the fuck the non-Japs are watching nowadays, then it's super hard to make those characters look convincing when they're flipping all over the place and trying to express wildly. Sure, you can have, like, big mouths. They can scream real big, got their eyes dilate or, whatever. But it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it's actually flipping around or anything. You watch, like, a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and it doesn't have to, like, have his mouth, like, extend to all part of him and have, like, his anatomy be all lopsided to sell a joke like in new cartoons. He just fucking, whenever he wants to mock someone, he just flips his limbs as far as he can go, and he makes an exaggerated pose and shit, and he flips around. And it's nice and satisfying and real, and it feels like it has weight and dimension, and it feels like it's a real character. You can reach out and touch and scratch his little teeth.
Are you saying this Porco Rosso is Porky Pig?
Yes, I'm saying it's Porky Pig. He says, and people are like, I can't understand you.
Speaking of who Porco Rosso is, to jump right into
no one has anything to say about the animation. All right.
Well, no, I was going to say.
I agree with everything you said. I don't know what to add.
I have a couple things about the animation I just want to mention. The bit where right at the beginning where the sailors make an arrow and they point, hey, the pirates went that way, and they're like doing an arrow for Porco Rosso to look at. That was animated so like. It looked very, very Asian in that it was cute, and it was also the sort of synchronicity you would expect from, like, I don't want to be racist or anything, but like
like
those
gnats, like worker bees. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. Like it just reminded me of the Beijing Olympics, where like they had like billions of people just perfectly in sync doing like movements, and I think that's just a thing they can do over there. That's just how they do it. They can easily make like at the drop of a fucking hat, they can make an arrow pointing in the exact direction and do like a little zoom
They're
swish.
Not ants. They're not like ants from Ant Bully.
Miyazaki likes to structure scenes in such a way, and this movie might do it even more than any of his others, where like every character is paying attention to the same thing. I think it sort of goes back to that Akira Kurosawa technique that Every Frame a Painting made a video about like having an emotion feel bigger because of everyone on screen is paying attention to it, and it like draws your attention to that focal point. So like throughout this movie, there's all these scenes where like something's happening and an entire cruise ship is paying attention to it, or like everyone's watching the boxing match, so it just feels extremely important because there's like 700 fucking people watching it and betting on it, and like it's kind of funny because in real life at no point ever is everyone in the vicinity of an event paying that much attention to it. Like there could be a bombing happening and there'd be still like a guy strolling by paying no attention, but like in Ghibli movies everyone cares about what's going on. But yeah, it's just to maximize that emotion. Very much a cinema technique over realism kind of thing, but I'm okay with it.
Another thing about like the plane and the way that the plane lands and the way that he moves like the gear stick and all that, like it really feels very real to such an extent. Like at some point I was researching like the symbols on the planes because I was wondering, is this like after World War I or after World War II, or like when does this take place? Turns out it's in between the two wars. There are people like hobbyists who have literally built the plane based on designs that they gathered from the movie, and it works. Like it's so accurate to like real stuff.
I love all the historical accuracy, not just in planes, but just in like all the attention put into interwar Europe. Interwar Europe is basically the most appealing aesthetic ever. It still is like a modern, like you can understand what people are saying. They aren't speaking 1800s English, and you have no idea what people are going on. It's modern, it's classy, but it's also rustic, and it feels like genuinity still exists. Like people are still sincere, and they actually believe things.
It's before the atomic bomb in the postmodern era,
Yeah.
I think I didn't do like much research into it, but there is like a ton of not only historical reference but like commentary on the politics of the time, and lots of references to like famous planes and shit.
All that stuff to fascist Italy and that sort of stuff. Dude,
Yeah.
I knew this movie was going to be good when I saw when Porco Rosso opened up his plane and he had the actual Italian flag of the day there and not the new Italian flag. That's how I fucking knew. That's how I knew they knew their shit.
Yeah, at first I thought it was gonna be like World War II Italy, like post or like whatever, because Japan was an ally of Italy during the war, and so like a Japanese movie about an Italian war pig would be like a really interesting angle, because
I think this is even more interesting. Since I mean, obviously I haven't seen a lot of Italian-based World War II stuff, but being Americans, I think we all are super oversaturated with World War II content in general. But I don't really see a lot of interwar Europe stuff. I don't really a lot of see of stuff people like reeling from like the First World War and calling back to that. Everyone's still bent out of shape about that, but things are percolating under the surface. Like we get to see like. I don't know what island it is. We get to see like the fascist Italians literally taking over part of the country in this, and no one knows that's what the new government's like now. It's it's interesting. It's really interesting to see it from this angle where things aren't all set into place for World War II.
I definitely think that this was chosen because of the planes. Like Miyazaki's a big plane nerd, loves him some fucking planes. I mean, we've seen plenty of fictional planes throughout these movies that are inspired by real ones. And later, his last movie, The Wind Rises, is about a guy who made World War II planes. So, it picks up a little after this one in time-wise. But, I'm almost certain that he chose this era because he was like, I want to make a movie where I get to draw as many fucking planes as possible. So, what was the last period in history where planes were super-duper relevant? And I'm sure he knows everything about that time period because of his fascination with planes, But this movie is the most Miyazaki film ever, I feel like.
It's so fucking good, dude. I really like this movie a lot.
It's
I really
so
like
deeply
it.
couched in his passions and his I mean, again, being set the fetishization of interwar Europe, of that time period and place and aesthetic.
Oh, everyone's smoking fucking cigarettes. Everyone's in trench coats. Everyone's talking about fascism. Everyone's talking about how World War I sucked. Everyone's saying stuff like Germany and Austria and Italy. And I just want to fucking come, dude. Just let me do it, Porco Rosso. Stop teasing me. Take your high heel off my urethra and let me come.
Oh, I think we can all agree.
Too vivid.
I think we can all agree that in terms of Japanese-made Italian characters, Porco Rosso wins over Mario every time.
Oh,
yeah,
certainly.
People need to wake up.
So my big theory about this movie is that Porco, and I felt this just when I saw Porco Rosso, especially the first time you see him with his hat off. Mm-hmm. He is Hayao Miyazaki.
Yeah, much like how the big giant scary goopy monster is whatever his name is, Shinji.
Wait, which? Oh, Hideaki Anno.
Yeah, Shinji is
I would say Hideaki Anno is outright is I made this to explore my mind. This movie I definitely think the pig is Hayao Miyazaki's how he saw himself at the time this movie came out, I think. It's not just a general version of himself, it's who he was right then and there. And a lot of it felt to me like a subtle commentary on the state of anime at that time and how he felt as a person working in that industry. And I guess he kind of saw it as this anime was in the middle of post World War I in terms of quality, because this is the early 90s. When this movie came out, Japanese economy has just begun its long collapse for the next 15 years. Anime is suffering. Miyazaki's been saying that anime was suffering since the late 70s, so this is not new to him, but it's suffering more than ever. And there's these moments, the biggest part that stood out to me is when first of all, he goes to the shop to get his plane fixed. And the engine that they put in literally says Ghibli on it.
Yeah.
You guys saw that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the engine of his plane is Ghibli. who is going to make this plane fly?
Oh.
The only people who are left are young people and women. Well, they're all women, but a lot of them are young or really old, and it's like just basically an unfit team. It's like there's no one talented left because they all died in the war. Everyone who could have made Miyazaki's vision come true, who could have built his plane so he could win this fight, is gone. But some of these young people are talented beyond expectations, and they're all really passionate because, you know, to be left, to be coming into the industry at this time. And Miyazaki's talked about a lot of his films being, like, about the Ghibli experience. Like, he talked about how Spirited Away was basically about, like, the young people who had come to work at Ghibli and him trying to, like, encourage them forward, and he saw himself as kind of Yubaba. In this case, he's Porco Rosso, but, like, this is it's like the most similar to his actual real life demeanor that any of his characters have ever been. Like, he acts, if you watch documentaries of Miyazaki, he acts exactly like Porco Rosso. Like, that kind of like, that he's smoking all the time. He's always kind of despondent and gruff and like not quite looking at people, but acting like a cool guy. But like, at the same time, kind of a pig, you know? Clearly has, like, always wary of women and young people, you know, like, but impressed with them when he sees what they can do. And what he's trying to do is to make a great, to put on a great performance, to just make something great, to just be the best. That's all he cares about, is being the best, flying the best plane, winning, showing everybody that he is the best at planes, you know? And it's like, it's in an era where the war is already over. There's nothing to fight over except for pride, basically. And that's it. If you watch various things that portray the anime industry, such as Shirobako, that show portrays it very similarly to the way that, like, the culture of flight in this place, this mythical version of Europe in this movie takes place in, where, like, no one's in it for good reasons. They're all in it because they're just dumb and they need to fly. Like, there's nothing left. All they care about is flying planes. It's the only thing that's cool for them, is showing off and being a badass. But most of them are doing it through underhanded or cheap means. Like, there's a part where the pirates rebuild their plane and they don't even have time to paint it, and they're flying an unpainted plane. I mean, you could draw a metaphor for having unfinished animation in a show, you know, and publishing it without even being able to finish it because you didn't have the fucking money or manpower. And, like, I could go on this parallel all day, but it's all basically the same thing. It's just like, this is the state of the anime industry, is it's falling apart. The only people still in it are the passionate idiots who just can't stop, you know? And Miyazaki, at this point in his career, would have been probably asking himself, like, why am I still like this? You know, like, and, you know, his plane is, like, falling apart. Like, they don't have the means to continue doing the kind of movies they were doing before. And, like, just like everything else in the early 90s, the Ghibli films are not quite, like, this movie manages to be obscenely beautiful only because the shot composition is so great. And, like, there's great animation in it, but it's definitely not, like, the level of intense, like, I don't want to say care or effort, but
there's less frames, but more, like, nice, like, locales and, like, shots where the plane flies into the distance. And
there's
just
more
sort of
economic use of its animation.
Yeah,
I would say so. And just fewer things that have to be drawn, you know? Like, even Kiki, which we kind of, we had kind of said, like, wasn't as good looking as the movie before that. Kiki has this gigantic town and, like, tons of characters on screen all the time. And, like, this movie has moments that are kind of like that, but there's also just a lot of, like, planes over blue skies, you know? Like, I don't know. There is a lot of technical quality in this, and there is in every Ghibli film. But, like, when we see the step up from this to Princess Mononoke, it's like, clearly they were trying to make, like, the biggest, most expensive movie possible with that one.
I think it definitely says something to Miyazaki's love for planes, that I didn't give a single shit about planes at all, and then I watched this movie, and when you see those planes in the dogfights just twirling over one another, ooh. What's the opposite of an oof sound? Off! I feel like off when I watch this movie. That's great.
Speaking of, like, that parallels and metaphors and stuff, with the anime industry. What did you think of like the asteroid belt of dead pilots flying far above the clouds?
That was
what I like about
fascinating.
that is that when he like relays it, it's sort of like almost like he doesn't even know if it actually happened. Like it's sort of like like a somewhat realistic illusion. I feel like in a lesser movie would take this opportunity to just have him talk to God or something to that effect, where it's just so like crazy and mythical. But this, like, he blacks out. He sees some weird trippy imagery that doesn't explicitly mean anything. But he, you can obviously prescribe meaning onto it. And it's sort of like, it's like, well, I saw that and then I woke up. So, like, it was a dream. Like, I was blacked out. But the girl's like, no, God spoke to me. He was like, lol. You're 3, dude.
I feel like at this point in Miyazaki's life, this movie came out, what, 94? Something like that? 93? Miyazaki's already pretty old by the time this movie came out. Like, I think he would have been in his late 50s or something. And so he would have literally seen, like, a lot of the people he worked with, a lot of the people who, like, started the anime industry were dying around this time. Like, the first, like, because, anime as a major industry really began in, like, the very end of the 50s to start of the 60s. So, like, the people who would have made anime exist in the first place would have first started dying out, like, probably in the 5-10 years leading up to this movie, Mm-hmm. So I feel like if you were in that state where you were watching all the good people die, you're watching people who did great work leaving the industry, or not even just tied to the anime industry, but just people in general. Like, he's at that age where a lot of people who he looked up to would have been dying, and people who he worked with would have been dying. And, like, I think it's very easy to run away to jadedness when that happens. It's easy to shield yourself because, again, every human connection you have is pain waiting to happen, when that person dies or goes away or you lose something. And so to just go off and be on your own and be on your own little, literally on an island. Like, they say no man is an island. This guy's on his own private island. He wants to be as far away from the rest of humanity as possible.
God, I love that island so much. I want to live there.
It's great. It's the same exact island that Sonic lives on in the Sonic OVA.
Oh, now I like Sonic.
And he flies a biplane from that island in Sonic as well. Well, Tails does anyways. Anyway. It very well could be, dude. It looks a lot like it.
I know. I mean, those hacks at Ghibli just don't know how to make a good anime. Just have to copy it from Sonic.
I think Sonic came later. I'm actually not sure. Anyway, so
Sonic inspired Dragon Ball Z as well with the Scouters.
Oh yeah, and the Super Sonic. Yeah.
He's all
out.
of anime came from that hedgehog.
Fucking Didn't we, like, break that down once? Like, we figured out which came first, Supersonic or Super Saiyan, and they were within, like, months of each other or something.
Yeah, that was on the PCP a long time ago.
Yeah. Anyway, go watch the Procrastinators podcast. We're all on it. It's good. He lives on an island. He doesn't want anything to do with people, even though he's a deep humanist. He literally fights, like, to protect people in his own way. Like, he's a bounty hunter, but he is usually doing, like, rescue missions and shit. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's like, it's so obvious that he's just trying to shield his heart, even though, like, he's not even doing a great job of it, because he still interacts with people all the time, Mm-hmm. And that's why his facade. I really love the moment when the girl kisses him, and then the American guy, like, looks at him and is like, hey, your face, like, and he just, like, won't look at him. He's like, no, don't look. It's like, yeah, a little bit of faith in humanity was restored by that girl, and so he's less of a pig. And at the end, it's left ambiguous whether or not he ever broke the spell, or whether or not he ever came back and decided to be with the girl. And I think that's because Miyazaki couldn't give himself that ending. It's like, he doesn't know if he's going back. Like, obviously, he's had experiences that gave him some faith in the new generation, but that doesn't mean that he knows he's ready to become this person again. And, I could be projecting a little there, because personally, like, whenever I write or come up with stories like this, like I wouldn't be able to find an ending if it was like this goes up to where I am right now, and that's how I kind of felt about this movie. It's like, this is the portrait of Miyazaki at this point in his life, and maybe going forward he becomes a humanist again, maybe not, we don't know.
It's shit like that makes the Lorax 2012 so fucking bad. Because in the Lorax original animation in the 1970s, it's like the book open-ended. The Onceler gives Ted the seed, and he's like, unless some young people like you care a whole awful lot, nothing's gonna get better. It's not. And it's not like he gets the seed and then he plants it, and then Ted like wins the game. And there's a bunch of bunch of Barbaloots in the Barbaloot suits jumping around. The Swami Swans come back, or the humming fish hum again.
Right.
It's like Ted walks off and he has the seed in hand. It's like, unless someone like you reading this book cares about the environment, it's not going to matter. If he had that out, if Dr. Seuss gave children, they're like, oh, Ted fixed the world, then they'd be like, oh, great, well, I'm glad that's resolved. Time to go buy some paper at my CVS. But no, it's so open-ended, everything's fucked. The last opening, the last shot of the movie is Ted walking back to like the post-apocalyptic, burned-out nightmare Hiroshima that he lives in. And then 2012 Lorax, it's like, it's all happy, everything's growing again, the Lorax comes back, the Lorax hugs the Onceler, everything's fine, don't worry about kids, buy our Priuses that we partnered with to shield this movie. That's our marketing is, buy Priuses, you'll fix the world. Don't worry, the Lorax already did it, don't even try. That's what this movie's like. It's like, nah, dude, you gotta try to be a good person. We're not gonna let you live vicariously through Mr. Rosso here. You're going to have to find out your true life. You're gonna have to fuck that horse. He's not gonna do it for you. You gotta fuck your horse.
Indeed.
I feel like it's pretty heavily implied that he does get back.
Yeah. But it's not said.
Like, I don't... Yeah, it is nice that it's, like, open-ended. Because you don't really... Yeah, you don't need to know... There's lots of stories where, like, after the final confrontation, there's still, like, some questions people, like, didn't get concrete answers to. There's an epilogue or, like, a bonus stuff or, like, later, like, explanations. And it's like, you don't need all that.
Terezi?
Yeah, you don't need all that
I even feel like I would say it's unfair to the audience to do that, because, like, if you're somebody who does connect with Porco Rosso, then if they just say, oh, and then he got with her at the end, it's like to suggest, like, well, like you're expected to watch the movie and go, well, I guess I will too, but it's like, maybe in your own life you don't have such an easy out, and it's like, for the movie to just, like, wrap it up with a bow would be to leave you kind of ass out. It's like, oh, well, I guess it's nice that Porco got to be human again, but I wish I could be human again. It's like, well, maybe it doesn't have to be so cut and dry.
Mm-hmm. Even the coolest guy in the entire world, Porco Rosso, maybe he's destined to be a pig forever.
Yeah.
Even though he's my literal dad. Dude, can you imagine making pasta with Porco Rosso? You wake up and you see him there in the kitchen, and he says, "Hey, my one and only son, the one that I've given the world. Why don't you come over here with your old man? Your old man's bones are starting to break down. Cell decay is starting to take effect, and I might not be around for much longer. But I want to leave you my one legacy, and that's cooking this authentic Italian pasta with me." And I'm like, "Thank you, Dad. Thank you."
And the secret ingredient is bacon. So, son, here's an axe. You know what to do.
Oh no. I didn't know the price of carbonara. I didn't know the price.
So, something that surprised me a lot about this movie is just that it's so much fun.
Yeah, dude, it's so fucking adventurous and full of whimsy. It's so great when he's flying around that plane out in the open air and his goggles are flipping and flopping. I've been saying flipping and flopping a lot this podcast.
The first time, it was, like, really, like, it felt, like, jovial, like, upbeat, even though it was sort of, like, kind of normal before, was when he got shot down and then he was just sort of hiding and he was just like, shit.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, guess I gotta do something with this.
And then he just kind of tells her that he was, like, on an island for 2 days with no food. Like, it was actually a pretty shit situation, but it's whatever. He's Porco Rosso.
Like,
he's done this before.
This is like lively, dude, like, I'm alive.
He's not
going
to starve. He is a pig. He can
that scene during, like around the beginning. He when like the music kind of stops and he just kind of goes silent, and he's in that, like, I don't know if it's a thunderstorm, but, like, a storm, or it's black and stuff, and he's just kind of silent, and he's just flying, and you just hear the whapping of his goggles. It's so nice. It's so aesthetic. It's so
fucking
peaceful.
loved the music in this movie.
Oh, it's great. It's
and
so good.
I'm not like every Ghibli movie is like renowned for its soundtrack. Joe Hisaishi does all the music, and he's always praised as like the god. Personally, most of the time, it's like I don't care that much. In this movie, I was just like, yeah. Like, sometimes the music just was the movie. Like, when he's first lifting off in his plane, like, what's happening on screen is like a really slow, laborious process of him revving up his plane, but the music is hype as fuck, and you're just like, yeah, I can't wait for this plane to take off. We're gonna have a fucking adventure. It's awesome.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. The whole, like, world and, like, the way this feels, it's like, I want a video game to feel like this. I want to be able to fly around.
Skies of Arcadia Legends.
Okay. Is that...
It's a big JRPG with a color palette kind of like this, and you play as pirates, and you fly around.
I don't like, not literally like the stuff that's in it, but like the feeling of like just, you're just hanging around. You don't need to do anything, and then you just get up and go, and you can go and you can fly, or you can sail. I guess Wind Waker is pretty close to that.
Yeah, Wind Waker's a good.
Just a beautiful thing where you could just hang out somewhere. And then do anything at any time.
Sid
like
Meier's
a cool
Pirates. Guy. I feel like that game was kind of like that. Yeah, man. Good shit. I forgot what I was gonna say. Anybody else got something?
the fist fight at the end, like as a climactic like fight with the villain.
This movie is just knockout scene after knockout scene. Just like every single scene, like every segment, from like Porco Rosso getting his plane fixed to like that last scene. Everything is just great. I love every single individual second. It's all so aesthetic and film noir and so like fedora core. I'm such a fedora freak. That's just what I am.
Well, that's another thing. And I saw some people saying online that this movie pays homage to like the visual styles of films from that time period in certain ways, like that it's very European feeling in like the way that shots are composed, and just I mean it feels more, I don't want to say static, because the movie feels pretty like fucking lively, and I would even say that in that way it's like a blend of these styles. Like, it doesn't just feel like it's paying homage to those old movies. It's like sometimes it lingers on a shot for a while and you're like, oh, this feels like a French movie, and then it's right back to being a Ghibli movie. And that's what's cool about it, is that like it's blending all those styles into something totally unique.
Going back to what I was saying about the three-dimensionality of the animation, even when they are standing still, you can still feel like they are a character there, because again, they have weight and they have presence within the shot. And when you have super flat, sort of character designs, it's sort of hard to judge how much space they're taking up, or how much presence they're actually consuming. Yeah. But with this, you really feel like, again, Porco Rosso's there, and that he could move at a moment's notice, but he just is standing still. It doesn't really feel like it's a limitation of the animation when any of the characters are still. It just feels like they are being still, and they could move whenever.
What I was going to say about this, it's surprising me that this movie was so fun, is because this is often seen, again, as the Dark Horse Miyazaki film. Usually, when I see people talk about it, they're like, oh, it's got more adult themes than most of his other movies. And I guess the themes are more adult in as much as if you wanted to understand, like, the deepest ideas being put forth by this movie, it might help to be an adult. But, like, this is like one of the most fun Miyazaki movies. Like, when I was a kid, I would have fucking passed out 5 minutes into Totoro. I was bored by the first 30 minutes of Spirited Away. I was like, I struggled to sit through Miyazaki films when I was younger. This movie kicks off with like a big fucking fun, crazy airplane shootout scene that is hilarious and adorable, because there's all these little girls who are just running around like having a great time,
mayhem.
Completely, like, there's no tension in the scene at all because of these kids, like, and which is obviously why they're there, like, to set the tone of the movie that, there's gonna be crazy aerial dogfights, but they do not matter. Like, no one's gonna get hurt. There's a bunch of 5-year-olds on board. They're like, they all dive into the water. By the way, I think the artistic quality of a Ghibli film in general can be gauged by how naked does the little girls get. So Miyazaki usually just shows you underwear in all of his movies, whereas Takahata always gets the girls completely naked. But in this one, Miyazaki got the girls completely naked, so he's trying to be more of a Takahata with this one. You know, a little more artistic integrity if you show more than the underwear.
I see.
This is look, we can't ignore this. We can't put this away. All right, there's naked girls in every fucking Ghibli movie. It's not accidental.
Okay. It was. You know, I'm not accustomed to this, so I wasn't offended or anything. But I was like, oh, well, they're just naked now. All right.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Hey, this is kind of a small point. Feel free to cut this when you edit this, 'cause I don't know how interesting this is gonna be. But when Porco Rosso's game, like, he's in the mechanic shop. I understand that it's like, you know, it makes sense in the time period, but like they're just really fucking laid into the fact that women are shit at being a mechanic, so that Porco Rosso hates them.
I love that the men in this movie are total chauvinists, and the movie is aware of it and takes them to task for it, which is what makes it great. It's that, like, Porco Rosso's opinion, I mean, it makes sense in the time period because there weren't a lot of women mechanics, but like Porco Rosso's just like, I don't want a woman touching my ship, but she's like, well, too bad, I'm great at doing this and you have no other choice, so fuck you, I'm fixing your plane, you know?
And she makes it even better. Yeah.
And the moment when the funniest moment of the movie to me is when, like, the endless army of women are coming into work on the plane.
It's
and
so
the guy,
good.
The mechanic guy's, like, complete self-confidence in it is what sells it. Just the fact that he's like, yeah, they're gonna fix your plane. You know, don't worry about it. Porco's like, are you fucking serious? Like, there's like 80, there's no guys at all, and he's just like, don't worry about it. You know,
I didn't watch the dub, but I was just looking at the Wikipedia page of this movie just to figure some things out. And apparently the guy in the dub who voices, I think is Piccolo, that's his name, is voiced by Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast, and I want to hear that real bad.
The only Piccolo I know is, hey guys, the balls are inert. You know, Dragon Ball.
Is that Yu-Gi-Oh?
Anyway. No. So,
Digimon?
Might as well be Yu-Gi-Oh! The other guy is a chauvinist in a more, like, he's like a white knight. But he's I think he's supposed to be a virgin, the American guy, because the part where she calls him boy, like, the word she uses in Japanese is boku, which is, like, often used to, like, tease a virgin guy, like, to say, like, you're just a boy because you haven't had sex yet. And the fact that he instantly switches gears and falls in love with the other girl as soon as he sees her, it's like, I think he's supposed to be like a desperate virgin who, because he's obviously a huge fucking nerd who's trying to be cool, you know, like he's actually amazing at flying planes. Like, he's when Porco first sees him flying, he's like, damn, that American guy's actually really good, you know. So it's like, he clearly is somebody with, like, a lot of technical ability and skill and who practices a lot, but he's a total mama's boy. And, like, where was he from? Like, Alabama or something? Or Missouri? He was from somewhere in the deep
I think
south.
Alabama, yeah.
I just thought it was really funny because I could easily imagine him being just this small town kid who, like, his mom always told him he could do anything and he could be anything. And so he was like, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be famous for flying planes because that's what the coolest people do. Because back then, you know, in the adventure serials and shit, that's what cool guys did, is they fucking flew planes and fought bad guys. So he found a way to make that happen and, like, legitimately had that kind of passion and drive that would take him to the top, you know, and like, he does become famous by the end, you know.
Yeah, he becomes a movie star.
But like, his idea of charisma is just like, be a pilot who's cool and chicks will just want to fuck you, but like, he has no actual charisma or understanding of women, whereas Porco does, but he's just such an asshole that he pushes everybody away. And it's like, women are throwing themselves at Porco Rosso, whereas the other guy is desperately trying to cling to them. You know,
he's Porco Rosso is the Rick to the American Boys Morty, basically.
Don't
a little
say things
bit
like that. I like the line that Gina tells Curtis, where she's just like love's different over here in Europe. You know, you guys do it all the time, but we hold on over here. And I thought it was really nice. It was really delicate and sweet.
I don't even remember that line, but that is great.
Oh, I have a Ghibli details. I didn't write down too many of these. I think I only have one. But it was the moment where Porco is like getting in the mechanic, and he's like starting to count up the money. And he's like the mechanic guy's counting the money, how much he's gonna need Porco to pay. Mm-hmm. And then the girl comes in and says, I'm gonna do it. And then Porco says, hey, no, the deal is off. And the mechanic stops counting. And then as soon as she starts her thing, she's saying, well, I'm good, she starts trying to convince him. And then the mechanic immediately starts counting up again, because he knows that she is so good at talking that she's going to convince Porco to be her mechanic.
And he knows Porco well enough to know that he will be sold by this,
Yeah. It's just like a little, like, character dynamic. Like, you understand the way these characters have interacted in the past.
This is another way that I think Porco is a lot like Miyazaki, because Miyazaki's known for being a hard ass, that his instant reaction to everything is like, no, that's shit. But he is somebody who can be talked into things. I mean, right now, this almost 80-year-old man is finally making his first, like, full 3D animated film, because, like, it took this long for people to convince him that it was good, Like, yeah, it's you can do good things over here with 3D animation. It's like he's that kind of minded person where his immediate reaction is always going to be no, but if you show him that you're passionate and you show him that you are confident, he'll believe in you. And that's another thing that comes up in basically all his movies. I mean, this girl, it was really funny because she is a Ghibli girl. She just doesn't show up till way later in the movie than usual for a Ghibli girl. But, like, the epitome of the Ghibli girl is just that if you have that never give up attitude, you will succeed in Miyazaki's world. It's all about just utterly believing in yourself and doing it no matter what anyone says to you. Even if it's him saying it to you. Even if he doesn't believe in you, you just got to keep doing it to convince him,
Yeah.
Do you think that the reason people think of Porco Rosso as like a dark horse with more adult themes is literally just because the Ghibli girl doesn't take up most of the movie?
I think it's
like
that
she's not the main character. She's sort of like a supporting role.
Because Porco himself is an older character, and the themes relevant to him are older. I think it's more that this movie probably didn't come to America initially because of the fact that there's all the sexism in it. There is like the naked little girls and stuff, and this came out in an odd period because Miyazaki didn't start selling his movies to the West until after Princess Mononoke came out, because when Nazca got brought over, it was chopped to pieces and it was made into Warriors of the Wind. He was not happy about that. It wasn't until the head guy at Pixar became a huge fan of Miyazaki because of Princess Mononoke that he got Disney to buy the rights, because he had set the price of the rights super sky high for his movies after what happened with Warriors of the Wind. So he was like, fuck that. Nobody's buying these unless they're going to pay out the ass. The head of Pixar convinced Disney to pay out the ass for the rights to his movies, and he sent them a samurai sword with, well, not him. Isao Takahata actually, I think, sent the samurai sword that said no cuts on it. From that point forward, the Ghibli movies would have regular distribution. So while Porco Rosso, I think, did circulate in some other countries, probably before here, I'm sure it was probably bigger in Italy, where they would have been eating it up because it is in Italy. I just don't think it had the opportunity to come to America in a big way, and it obviously wasn't going to get played on Cartoon Network or anything because there is some more adult content in it, and I think the sexism of the characters would have been a major turnoff for TV stations to show this to kids, But I will say that for me, as a young boy, this would have been my favorite Ghibli movie if I had been shown it, you know?
I mean, speaking as a young boy myself, it is my favorite Ghibli movie after seeing it.
Yeah, well, you're 18 now. You're not a young boy anymore.
Comparatively.
Sure. I mean, when I was 12, I would have fucking loved this movie, I think. Because it's just got a lot of fun action. It's got guys beating the shit out of each other, and it's a fun... I would have probably felt kind of like the American guy. That... He acts kind of like a 12-year-old boy who grew up on adventure serials and has just grown up to continue to be that person because he hasn't had to deal with anything real. he's obviously too young to have fought in World War I, and maybe his dad died in World War I and he grew up without a father figure, because he seems like that type of person too. Like, I could easily imagine that being his backstory and why he's so attached to his mom, you know? That's my headcanon now. But yeah, whereas Porco, because of his, I do think that, like, I wouldn't have understood what Porco's deal is, like, what he was grappling with, but from a child's perspective, it's just a movie about a guy who got turned into a pig and is trying to not be a pig anymore, you know? Like, it doesn't matter what the metaphor is, you can understand it on that basic level, that, like, you know, Wikipedia plot description level, that would still be appealing.
But by the way, this is a super pretentious point, but I don't mean it in a pretentious way. I feel like going to Italy actually has increased my pleasure watching this movie, because specifically, I've like, okay, those three, like, women, those three older women who look like gargoyles and look disgusting, who come and help fix Porco's plane. I've, like, seen literally those people in real life.Ey've come up to me and said, "Hey, can I fix your plane?" They have just, like, I've seen them in real life, and not only that, but I've seen, like, small Italian towns and sort of architecture that Porco, like they're running through that, like, one river to get out to the open blue so they can take off. I've seen stuff
that scene
exactly
is so
like
fucking
that.
good.
It's so fucking cool.
That scene of the, like, attempted takeoff from the riverbank, I felt like the whole movie existed so he could animate that, you know? It was that kind of, like, it's so specific of a thing of, like, you know, I've praised Miyazaki films for, like, one of my favorite things that he does is that he maps his settings so well, because, like, he creates scenes that could only exist if you literally know the layout of the entire fucking city. Like, there's no way that he could have done that without drawing a map and fucking plotting a course down the map and thinking what interesting things could happen, like what would interfere with a plane trying to take this route, you know? And it's fucking genius.
I'm sure he must have gone to, like, Milan and
oh yeah,
you know,
for
research
sure,
for this movie. Yeah, I mean, it just is super nice to see things that you've seen in real life and see how, like, I don't know. I guess it's just a surface level. I like that he appreciates the same thing that I appreciate about what I saw, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, any Ghibli movie that has, like, detailed drawings of things that you have seen in real life, it's just, it's nice to see that there's, you know, like, a recreation of a thing that is like, oh, that's a drawing of the thing that's real.
Yeah.
Like every plane, like all the things that go into, like, the way they were making the plane and, like, redoing the wings and all that, and all the tools they were using, like, I'd seen tools like that before. It's lovely. So I like Ghibli.
A major part of my point from earlier about this whole industry metaphor that I forgot to bring up is the part where they go to that theater and they're watching the cartoon movie. Because the movie they're watching is, first of all, it seems to be, like, animated on ones, like Disney style. Like, the animation is super smooth, but there's not really any backgrounds or anything, and it's like, it's super cartoony, and the first part of it is just, like, a monster destroying planes, and then there's, like, a Mickey Mouse-esque characters who share a kiss, and it's very, like, Hollywood, and Porco's opinion of the movie is, this movie is shit. Like, he says, like, this is a terrible movie. The guy who's a fascist, part of the fascist regime, is like, this is a great movie. And it's like, it's obvious that this is his statement on what he thinks of, like, what's going on at Disney at the time, that, like, these movies that are, you know, this would have been Disney's heyday, and when they were getting, like, super praised for their comeback, but those movies are comparably very, like, Hollywood schmaltzy traditional, you know, movies compared to what Miyazaki wants to do with animation, you know? And I thought that was
what he wants to do with animation, sure, but I would not say that those movies were by the numbers. Mostly on account of the fact that a lot of people hated, like, half of the Renaissance movies, and that they took risks that did not pay off in, like, a traditionally Hollywood way.
I mean, Disney invented the numbers in some ways.
Sure.
The numbers
I'm not
people,
saying
like,
that they
follow.
did not try and market to a mass audience. I'm saying, but you look at, like, literally everything after The Lion King, and they're taking risks and having it not pay off to a general audience.
Lion King would have been after this movie, though. We're talking, like, 93. So, and I don't even know if it was a commentary just on what Disney was doing at the time, or just generally his his view on like this kind of movie, the kind of movie that is like a bombastic spectacle film that entrances all the children in the audience. He's just like, this sucks, you know? Like, I want to make something better. I want to do the good work that I want to do, and I want to do it. In that scene, the guy tells him, like, the only way you can fly is if you're paid for by the government or by a flight service, you know? And he's like, I fly solo. I'll just fund it myself, you know? And, like, that's obviously the mentality here was like, you know, if you want to make anime, you either have to be part of a major franchise or you've got to be doing it for, like, you know, a company who's sponsoring it. And he's like, I just want to make my vision. So, yeah, that's just more wood on the fire that I forgot to bring up earlier of that whole comparison.
I'm sorry for making you put images in this podcast, but I have to bring something to your attention. Curtis is from America, right?
Yeah.
All right, here, hold on.
But he has an Italian flag on his shirt.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's not an Italian flag. It's a Dutch flag.
Oh.
And I don't know why.
Weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I mean, I guess he's just a well-traveled man.
But why? But why? Why?
Maybe he has a Dutch mother or something.
Maybe. But that was the only thing I could think whenever I saw that character. I didn't even hear any of his dialogue or read the subtitles, or
maybe
the animation.
I mean, it is red, white, and blue. Maybe there was like an American stripe like that. Like maybe there was something that people wore. Like obviously,
or like
having
American
all 50
pilots.
stars would be kind of hard on a fucking thing that size. You know. Maybe that's just a version of the American flag. I don't know. I'd have to research.
I mean, like taking the fact that like so many other of like the plane details are so correct, it might actually be, you know, one of those.
Maybe
like the uniform he has
Yeah.
and the uniform other people have.
So, regarding the slugfest at the end, yeah, like my favorite
good.
thing about that whole arc is just to bring down to that moment where you kind of realize that throughout this whole movie, obviously Porco Rosso's the badass. You're always on his side because he's suave and cool, and he's like the guy you want to root for. And the American guy is a big, dumb, idiot doofus who is totally wrong-headed about everything. And yet, the fact that Porco feels the need to prove himself by fighting this guy goes to show that, like, in this conflict at least, they are equal. Like, and that's why I love that there is no real win. Oh, I guess Porco does win in the end, but like, you know, it's a hollow victory at that point when you've watched them just fucking beat the living shit out of each other for like minutes on end, and Porco looks really pathetic. Like he looks like he cared too much and tried too hard. You know, and like if he had just blown him out of the sky and he had just been like a total badass, it would have been one thing. But like to see that he had to go to such lengths and put himself at such risk and get beaten up so bad just to be able to say he won, in the end, it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory, you know, and it just lets it sink in that like at the core of all that coolness, all that, you know, badassery, and not to say that it's illegitimate, because Porco is still a cool guy and you still do like him, but he is also a chauvinistic macho asshole, you know, and like in the end that's who's laying in the water beaten up, you know. But we all forgive him. The girls forgive him. They still like him. He's still great. Yeah, it doesn't like, and that's why I said that I love that the characters are allowed to be assholes, and the movie doesn't have to. It doesn't have to, like, go out of its way. It doesn't have to make them villains, you know? Like, the fact that he's a chauvinist pig is made fun of by the movie, and the girls all call him out on it, but it doesn't mean he has to be treated as, like, this terrible person, because at the end of the day, he has lots of heroic properties, and he is held accounted for by the people who it matters to, you know? And I wish
it's an important lesson for people to learn, because there's so many people that are just like, as soon as there's one bad thing about a person, it's like, I don't know, it's like the entire because that person has one bad belief, like the entirety of their character and personality is just out the window, and it doesn't even matter.
And that's,
what else they think.
these days that is just like how it is on the internet, especially.
Yeah.
It's like you say a disparaging remark about a group of people, and you are now Hitler, and it's like, well, let's look at the summary of a person, and like see. If maybe they're not even really that serious. Like in Porco's case, like he acts like, oh, I don't want women touching my plane, but in the end, a bunch of women fix his fucking plane. In the end, he lets the girl come with him. In the end, like it's implied that he maybe even comes back and settles down and fucking is a real boy. So like,
I mean the whole fact that he is like literally like a pig, like as a visual, is like people will see that. And then they'll be disgusted if they judge people in that way.
Right.
But you got to judge a book by the contents.
I do love the implication, though, that in spite of being a pig, he still fucks. Because there's that girl at the bar who's like, hey, Porco, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll teach you I'll tell you the story later in our alone time. And I was like, hey-o. I bet he porked that girl.
That is kind of funny that like lots of women just find, like when he was flying by the plane full of like people, civilians, they just, all of them women just came out the window like, oh my god, it's Porco Rosso.
Right.
Hey Porco. And
because
like,
women like
he's
pigs.
Cool and everyone loves him. They're great.
Women are into pigs. It's true. It's true life.
#pig. #hamboys.
This is the most hamboy movie imaginable, for sure. Porco is definitely.
We should buy a plane and recreate. We should buy a plane and recreate this movie.
Yeah.
I wish, like on a rating out of 10, fatherhood, father figure out of 10.
Father figure out of 10.
Yeah.
I definitely I need to see this movie more times. I've only seen it the once. Every Ghibli movie has this I don't want to call it an issue. I think that Ghibli movies are meant to be watched more than once. You're never really going to get the whole thing on the first go through, especially because they're unpredictable. They don't signpost where they're going. I feel like Western cinema is often just very hand-holdy, not just in terms of exposition and stuff, but that like what the plot is, the motivations, everything is established, and then we set on the road towards that realization. Miyazaki's films, they just flow in whatever order would be natural, and the plot is whatever happens to happen. So, with this movie, there was a significant portion of it where I was just like, where is this going? What is this about? What is it going to be?
It's one thing after another. Like the only reason that there's a competition later into the movie is because the pirates gang up on him when he comes home with the girl. And the only reason he went to the girl is because he needed to fix the plane. And it's just natural course of events.
I think that's really interesting that you say that, because I didn't feel that way at all about this movie. But okay, to contrast it, if you guys haven't seen, I was on the Nazca of the Valley of the Wind podcast, and I was talking about how I was bored by the movie. And that I was constantly thinking like I don't care about any of the characters in this movie. I don't care about the aesthetic. I don't care about anything about what's happening. I don't care. Stop. But this, even though it's so lower stakes, it's like basically nothing is on the line. Maybe Porco's life, but not even really. He can probably just get away whenever he wants to.
I mean, this is much more of
the aesthetic.
This is much more of a character-driven movie too.
Yeah, it's great.
With Nazca, and Nazca is kind of pretentious.
Nazca is like
in a way.
Yeah. There's an element of I wonder how the world is going to end in this movie. It starts with an apocalypse and a guy going around saying, everything's fucked. So you immediately think there's going to be some higher stakes, like a big plot to do with something.
I mean, having read the Nazca manga, Nazca is much more about Miyazaki trying to create this complete vision of what he thinks of the world and society and everything. And the movie doesn't go far enough into that for it to be completely sold. So if you read the manga, you will have that feeling still of the characters feel secondary to the message, and with Porco, the character is the message. So
and that's why it's good, and I like it more.
Yep,
it's a really solid movie. I will say that there was a point in the midsection where they spent a lot of time rebuilding the plane, and there was like a little bit where I was kind of like, I don't see we've been here for a while. Was kind of the feeling I had. Like, we've been at this place for a while. I'm not really sure where we're going after this, and it kind of felt like a slump of narrative tension, you know? Of, like, we're not really on a mission right now. We're just kind of
here.
But again, I enjoyed
like
the
that.
characters. I don't need there to be a lot of, like an intense plot or anything. I don't need the world to be at stake.
Right.
All I need is that Porco Rosso to be on screen.
What it reminded me of, quite a lot, it reminded me of, like, a lot of the slower, like, less action-y moments of Cowboy Bebop, where they're just like on the ship or exploring a town and finding a VHS
I would say
player.
if you like Cowboy Bebop, this is a movie to watch because it's got a very similar tone. Like, I feel like Porco Rosso's character would be right at home in that show and setting.
This is a better Cowboy Bebop movie than the Cowboy Bebop movie.
I agree. I don't really like the Cowboy Bebop movie. And again, like, even though I do think the movie is shockingly, like, fun and adventurous and cool for being known as the adult theme movie, it does have, like, pretty adult themes. It feels, it's got that deep set, like, sense of grief, I guess. And I think maybe that the reason I don't see this as being, like, vastly different from other Miyazaki films in that regard is that Miyazaki films always have older characters. So, like, while the main characters are usually younger and don't have, you know, as, like, deep or complex of problems with, you know, like, with their past and stuff, like, I mean, it's just a Miyazaki film where one of the older characters was the main character instead of the Ghibli girl. The Ghibli girl is still in the movie, you know, like, you could still connect with her just as easily if you were that age or that kind of person, but, like, we've just shifted the focus a little bit over here. And so, to me, I guess because of the fact that I've been doing these podcasts where we break down every character and their motivations, we go super in depth on the themes, I feel like every Miyazaki film is this deep and this adult. It's just depending on, like, where the focus is. But nonetheless,
perceived to be deep in the first place.
Yeah, and whether, regardless of that, like, I do think that if you are someone who wants to watch something with an older main character, with that kind of, that depth of history and nuance in their personality because of the things that they've experienced and been through, then this is a movie to check out.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I was thinking about this movie's great. I love everything about it. There's no flaws. And then I said in the beginning it's 9 out of 10. But why isn't it 10 out of 10? I like it. So it's to 10 out of 10. I like it a lot. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I thought it was weird that you hadn't said 10 when you had literally no complaints.
Yeah, I have literally no complaints. 10.
Yeah. I had, like, there was a time in my life where I thought this was my favorite, and then I changed my mind at some point. But now, after watching it again, definitely this is my favorite one.
I thought this was going to be your favorite Ghibli movie from the moment that a pig-shaped man was, like, using a giant crank to, like, repower the plane. You know, like the beginning when he puts the crank in the engine?
Yeah.
And, like, just, it was like everything you've said that you like about Ghibli movies in one moment right there, you know, like that feeling of, like, the tactile machinery and also, you know, a character who would be in a mascot platformer from the PS2 era.
Oh god, I want a PS2 Porco Rosso game.
It would be a legend.
I like film noir. I like fedoras. I like interwar Europe. I like the 1920s and the 30s. And I like old things. And I like Porco Rosso.
Let me go ahead and look up what is the next Ghibli movie that we're going to cover on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't look it up beforehand.
I don't know anything about Ghibli movies, but I want to see Porco afterward because I've seen that in theaters and I want to be on
Porco would be the next one, if not for the fact that we're also going to cover Ocean Waves. So Ocean Waves will be the next one, which was a TV movie that's very contentious. It seems like everyone either thinks this is, like, the worst Ghibli movie or, like, one of their favorites. I gave it a 10 when I watched it, like, a decade ago, but I don't remember anything about it. But it's a TV movie directed by a guy who never did any other work with Ghibli. So
So it's
I
a
want to
one-off.
cover it. It obviously seems like it's fair to put it on the
I mean, it's
list.
a Ghibli movie, yeah.
Yeah. So next up we're gonna do Ocean Waves from 1993. After that will be Porco or
Sick.
Pom Poko from 94. All right, everybody. See you
Wait,
next time.
wait. If you like me and Give and Take,
yeah.
then we do anime reviews too. Now, here's
Yeah.
a little
That's true.
cheat code. There's a little bit of a cheat code right now, just so you know, a little bit of a secret tip. Me and Hippo hate anime. We don't even like it. We've never even seen a single one, in fact. We've seen 2 or 3 anime, and so that's the angle that we're tackling this from. We're watching the most classic and well-renowned anime. We're watching Serial Experiments Lane. We've watched some other ones, I don't remember which, and we're figuring out we're from the Western audience. We're the target demographic of big-wig Hollywood executives, and so we're taste testing anime to see if it is in fact bad. So you can go and see us on Chibibakas. We know absolutely nothing and refuse any knowledge that people try and give us. It's over on the Procrastinators channel, and it'll be linked in the description.
As well as also there you will find all 3 of us on the Procrastinators podcast.
Yes.
So yeah.
Vastly inferior show to Chibibakas.
Chibibakas is the greatest thing of all time. I think we're doing S-Cryad with Ben Sant, notorious
S-Cryad's
criminal.
not only a great show, but especially great first 3 episodes. So I'm sure you guys will have fun with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah.
Guys, do you think Ben Saint is Hayao Miyazaki? Do you think they're the same guy?
Not even close.
Not
Alright.
in terms of artistic potential, but in terms of crankiness and saying no a lot.
No, I think Miyazaki's far crankier than Ben is. All right, that's it for this one. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Oh shit, Auf Wiedersehen. How do you say goodbye in Italian?
Ciao.
Ciao. That's the one.
Arrivederci. Porco Rosso.
Lo farò,